Good afternoon, listeners. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Curious Inquiries, where each day I answer a burning question from one of our listeners. First off, I want to thank our sponsors, Touchland Hand Sanitizer, Everyday Life Made Clean, and Mr. Bosch and the NDA track team. Good luck this season, guys. So after some careful reviewing of all of your questions, I've decided to answer a question from one of my most loyal listeners. Ronnie gave me a tough challenge for today. She explained that her junior year has been enjoyable, but the course load has been very difficult and strenuous. She explained that she often finds herself wondering, why am I doing this? What's the point? Which is why she posed the question, what is the purpose of education? To be honest, this was one of my more difficult questions, and I think that everyone would have a slightly different answer. Well, here's what I think. I think that education should prioritize more critical thinking, creativity, and individuality over the memorization of facts and figures. So in order to answer this question, I think we have to ask another question. What is the current state of education? Well, from my own experiences and after doing some more research, I have found that today's education system prioritizes the memorization of facts and figures and the comprehension of information rather than critical thinking and problem-solving skills. Studies have found that students only retain a small amount of the information that they learn in class, especially when this information is crammed into their brains along with 5 or more other subjects. Thomas H. Mentos writes in his book, The Human Mind, that you only remember 20% of quickly learned material after a 30-day period. But that is what the current model of the education system allows for. So what are students getting out of this current model? Strategies that allow them to quickly retain information, test well, forget the information, and repeat? These skills are not going to prepare students for a world that require creative problem solving, adaptability, and collaboration. Now, while doing my research, I came across this Einstein quote. Einstein said that education is what remains after one has forgotten what one has learned in school. And so in simple terms, I think that Einstein meant that true education is not just about memorizing facts for tests. It's about learning how to think critically, solve problems, and apply what you've learned in real-life situations. Even if you forgot specific details from school, the skills and understanding you gain are what really stay with you and shape your future. Which brings me to my second point of how important these critical thinking and creativity skills are. According to the University of Louisville, critical thinking is the objective analysis and evaluation of an issue in order to form a judgment. Critical thinking allows people to form their own opinions and question the opinions of others. This is very important because in today's world, information and misinformation is everywhere we look, in the news, social media, and many other places. It's often hard for me to figure out what to believe. Dr. Martin Luther King was very much ahead of his time. In his 1947 article titled The Purpose of Education, in which he wrote for his school newspaper, King says, the press, the classroom, the platform, and the pulpit, in many instances, do not give us objective and unbiased truths. To save man from the morass of propaganda, in my opinion, is one of the chief aims of education. Education must enable one to sift and weigh evidence to discern the true from the false, the real from the unreal, and the facts from the fiction. Like King said, critical thinking helps us separate the facts from the fiction, and it also allows us to create our own opinions and solve our own problems. With the upcoming election, people need to do their homework and make sure they are getting both sides of the story. I know that a lot of my friends are going to be able to vote, and they need to make sure they separate the facts from the fiction, whether it's the candidates they're voting for or the different law changes. And these critical thinking skills are also crucial when things go wrong. In today's world, there are endless professions that require thinking outside of the box and in general are unpredictable. Nurses, doctors, electricians, architects, lawyers, and journalists are just a few of the many jobs that require these critical thinking skills. For example, my good friend is an electrician, and whenever he shows up to a job, he has to troubleshoot and fix a problem that he may have never seen, but he can use the prior knowledge that he has to solve the problem. And another recent example is with the coronavirus. The chemists at Pfizer and Moderna had to try and create a new drug to tackle this deadly disease. They had to question everything that they knew about their job, everything that they had learned. They had to unlearn it in order to create this new drug. So, when I was trying to answer Ronnie's question, I interviewed many people and surveyed the internet for different opinions, trying to find some good facts and separate it from the fiction. And after reading about Martin Luther King, like I discussed before, I came across James Baldwin's writing, A Talk to Teachers. In this, he discusses the role that education plays in forming the identities and opinions of students. He argues that teachers are a big influence on how students see the world based on what they teach and how they teach it. Baldwin thinks education should focus on helping students think for themselves, understand things, and make their own decisions. I agree with this. I think if teachers taught in ways that encourage students to think critically, education could aid them in understanding the world better and be able to make positive changes in society. So I was researching also some of the benefits of our current education system so I can get both sides of the story. And one benefit, obviously, that I found was that it's been around for a long time and educators are familiar with it. So this traditional framework, which school systems have created, does provide students with an easier transition from like elementary school to middle school to high school and beyond. And also, more importantly, it allows administrators to oversee consistent teaching methods. The American University School of Education puts it as, traditional education's rigid structure allows students to grow up with a sense of organization and order. However, this benefit can also be one of its biggest disadvantages. One argument in opposition to traditional education emphasizes that traditional schools exist only to develop productive workers and eliminate individuality. Traditional education is often accused of stifling creativity and treating students as machines to be fed knowledge. This supports my point about the need to evaluate the balance between tradition and innovation in education. While the traditional approach offers familiarity and structure, it's important to recognize that it limits creativity and individuality. Moving forward, education systems should strive to integrate the benefits of tradition with innovative practices that foster critical thinking, creativity, and adaptability in students, preparing them for success in our changing world. To conclude, education is meant to give students the tools such as critical thinking and individuality, as well as the ability to form their own opinions. Education must move away from the memorization of facts and material and begin to prioritize these life skills. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and don't forget to tune in to next week's episode. And please remember to click the form under the video title to give me anonymous feedback. Toodles!